Yeah, there we go. This is the latest find. I'm running a Dukes 3/8 full skip chain, or full comp chain, I should say, I guess. Got the Efco 165. Mr. Tanton Rosenkrantz. Look him up on YouTube. I'll link him to this video. He knows a lot about these Efcos. He really likes them. And for good reason. They're good, solid saws. Just as good as a Stihl or a Husqvarna. John Sered, Shindaiwa, Efco. They are a top-notch chainsaw, or at least these older ones were. They kind of went the same direction as Solo did. Basically sold out kind of thing, and I believe they did anyways. But this right here is one of the old school ones that are full tilt commercial chainsaw, and I believe they're made in Italy, which is, whenever I first met my wife, she had a Vespa. She had two Vespas. And I've messed with motorcycles like all my life. And so I was like, cool, let's do this. And so one of them I kind of adopted sort of as mine, and I hopped it up with an aftermarket cylinder and everything, a Malosi cylinder and pipe kit and everything. And boy, that thing would run, all right? It was fast for what it was. It was a 150cc two-stroke, I believe is what it was. You just almost, it was difficult to shift it through the gears with any kind of speed whatsoever without that front end popping up on me. It was pretty fun to mess around with. However, jetting that carburetor was next to impossible unless you knew what exact parts that they needed, because they didn't take the same jets as regular Keen carbs and stuff. They had a downdraft carburetor and everything, and so I couldn't get it jetted right. I took it to a guy, and he had to drill out the jets, and I told him, and I know that we're going somewhere with this, and I told him, I was like, it's still got a dry spot right there at the upper RPMs. It still is a little bit lean. He's like, no, it's fine. It just needs to break in, blah, 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 blah. Well, that thing locked up on me doing 70 miles an hour on I-285 here in Atlanta. I was doing a top speed run, and got that thing up to 70, and as soon as I hit 70, and that little tiny back tire locked up on me, and it immediately went into a death wobble. I laid it down. By the time I touched pavement, me personally, dink, I was going at least 55 miles an hour, probably more like 60, because it happened immediately. There was no time for that machine to slow down. So after that experience, I was like, I'm never getting an Italian motorcycle again, ever. You know, Italian sucks, blah, 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 blah. Well, with chainsaws, they can make a good chainsaw. They can make good motorcycles too. It's just, they're different than what we've come to learn and know here in the United States. If I was in England, where they still use a lot of Vespas, they're really popular and people play with them all the time, it might have been a different situation, because I could have went to somebody and he's like, yeah, that takes a 185 jet, and he's got it and pulls it out and plugs it in, and you know, but I couldn't even find the jets. There was not even a source for me at the time. We're talking to 2009, something like that. At the time, there was not even an online source where I could buy a jet kit for that carburetor and go through and actually properly jet it. So it's a mixed bag of feelings for the Italian stuff. But with these chainsaws, you know, this has a Walbro carburetor on it, and jetting is done by turning screws, so shouldn't have an issue there. But anyways, I got this yesterday, really happy about it. It's in good shape. It really cleaned up nice. I'm going to get some Cerakote wipes and wipe down the plastic, and that should bring back the shine, right? But for now, it's all stock, 100%. We're just gonna run it and see how it runs. And then we'll talk about the differences between this and the 156 or the John Deere CS56 and stuff. So, oh, one pull. Oh, really? I didn't even lock the throttle, so. Clearly that carburetor needs some work. I'm not going to mess with it right now. The low side is set far too lean is my guess. Just wanting to keep that chain spinning like that. Power wise, feels good. Feels really good. That chain is cutting pretty darn nice. I'm happy with that. Those Duke chains, you know, they're cheap chains made in China, and but I've said it before, say it again. As far as those cheap chains goes, I think that's the best that there is. And this is the first time that I've sharpened a 3/8 version of that chain. I sharpened a 325 chain from the Dukes, and that's the way I felt about it. It still wasn't very smooth. That could have been my fault, probably was. But this 3/8 chain, it sharpened up real nice. It's cutting nice and smooth, throwing real good chips, you know. So I'm happy with that. You just can't beat that deal on the Duke's chain. They're so cheap, you know. Typically you get 2 or I think maybe 3 of them for like 40 bucks. It's really a smoking good deal. I don't know if it came off on camera or not, but it was really loud. I could really hear that chain. And oh, I know why. Well, I sharpened it, and so I had that chain really good and tight, and I never loosened it back up. So that, see, which calls into question really the tune on this thing even more, because if that chain's really tight and it's still wanting to spin it like this, then that tune is really off. It's not, I mean, it's warm, but it's nothing, it's not super hot or anything like that. But overall, I like the saw. I knew that I was going to like the saw. I'm super excited about this saw. it's almost unreasonable how excited I am about this saw. And it's because this is over 63 cc's, all right? And it's a really small, compact chassis. This is, so if you watch the channel, you'll know that I had the 6510, and I kept complaining at how big it was, which it is, it's big. It's a big saw. You know, it's a 70, 75 cc chassis. That's what it feels like, but it's only 63 cc's. And I was like, man, if I could just get this power in a smaller chassis, because whenever I ported that 6510 Efco, man, it really came alive and it ran really well. It had great power, great torque, really good RPMs. It was a nice saw, but I didn't like how big it was comparing, you know, the size ratio to engine displacement. It just was like, come on, you know, it's no good, right? But with this one, this has the exact same specs of that bigger 6510. So, but it's a much smaller, lighter chassis. This is right there in line with a Husqvarna 357 XP or 359. Also the Steel 361, 362. It's a nice, small, compact unit. And these Efcos, I gotta say, you know, we like to talk about vibrations all the time, right? And a lot of the modern saws, they use spring dampening, which makes the saw kind of flimsy feeling. I like the way that these things are still using the old school, like rubber puck for vibration isolation. At least I think that's what they're doing. Yeah, I can see them. There's no springs. It gives it a really nice, rugged, solid feel. And I like that. And I didn't notice that it vibrated much at all. You know, I mean, not more than anything else, you know. But specifically, so this is built off of the chassis of the Efco 156, or it's also the Efco 162, maybe 163, all right? And it's also the Efco / Oleo Mac 962. But anyways, the chassis though is what I'm talking about. That's important. Most of the ones in the United States are 56 cc's. And so that would be the 156 or the 956, you know, and the John Deere CS56. Well, a lot of people think that these right here are the exact same saw, just with a bigger board to give it more cc's. This actually has a 1 millimeter longer stroke also. So the crank is different. And that right there is special to me. That's a solo move. Solo chainsaws did that stuff. The Dolmar counterparts to the solo chainsaws would typically have 1 millimeter less stroke. And so, you know, the Dolmars was like, yeah, I like that, but let's give it an extra millimeter of stroke, which is nice. It's a way to make the saw more torquey, give it a broader power band, as well as you know, obviously more displacement and stuff. So this has a 35 millimeter stroke and a 48 millimeter bore. My Makita 6100 has a 35 millimeter stroke and a 47 millimeter bore. So it's 61 cc's. This is over 63 cc's. And I have high hopes for this thing running as good as that Makita. And will it or will it not? I don't know. That Makita is set up really nice. It's cherry. It's a really good running saw. However, that Makita is big. You feel like you're holding a 70 cc saw. This feels like a 55 cc saw. So really excited about this one, because these and the 50 cc saws, you know, the 50 and 60 cc saws, is where my bread and butter is. That's what I use. That's what I grab whenever I go out and work. So if I can get this thing to pull power similar to the 562 XP that's ported 562 XP, the ported Makita 6100, but it's in this nice small package, I'm gonna love it. So, but yeah, so everybody seems to think, a lot of people seem to think that you can get the 56cc version of this saw and just put the larger piston and cylinder that this comes with this saw on that 56cc saw. And while you could probably make it work, it's not quite there because the 56cc saw has a shorter stroke. So this to me is a unicorn. They're hard to find whenever whenever you're looking for them. You typically see the 56cc all over the place. But the 63cc, I'm thinking that I port this thing up, I'm gonna really like it. Like, really, really like it. Like, might be my favorite 60cc saw. I don't know. We'll have to see. Because it definitely, as of right now, it feels much more compact. It feels much lighter than a 562 XP or the Makita 6100. And those things, the power, whenever you do a good, proper port job, is phenomenal. So if I can get that phenomenal power into this smaller package, nice. Now, let's bring up the 357 XP / 359. I've got those, and I really like them both. However, I think I like this one more. Let's put it that way. I don't know, because I haven't ported this yet. But whenever I port it, I'm not going to aim at making it rev 14,000 RPMs in the cut. I'm going to aim to make it a good, solid work saw that has good torque and good RPMs, and we'll see what we can get. You know what I mean? We'll see what we come up with. If I can get it to produce the power that the larger Efco 6510 had that I ported, if I can get it to pull power like that, then yeah, no question, this will be one of my favorite saws. So, but they are different. You can't take that larger, I don't think you can take that larger piston and cylinder from the 6510 and adapt it directly on here. I don't think they match up. That one would be a big block saw. This would be a small block saw. It wouldn't quite match up. So there will be differences between the two saws, meaning the 165 and the larger 6510. Even though they're identical in displacement, there's bound to be some differences in the power and power delivery. These things were rated from the factory at 4.3 horsepower, I believe, whereas the 6510, the larger one, was rated at 4.7 from the factory. Who knows if those numbers are true or not, but yeah. Anyways, very excited to see what I can come up with this on this. I'm really wanting to go port it right now. However, I'm leaving for Syracuse tomorrow. I'll be gone for, I won't get back for a little while, you know, 4 or 5 days. And so I don't think I'm gonna start on a porting project. I don't think so. Maybe I'll get started on the muffler mod, something like that today. But yeah, it's pretty great. Can't wait to see what it actually does with a port job.